This month, our theme is flourishing together, and our shared value is love. In honoring our long-held UU tradition of the flower communion, we are offering an open invitation to that you if you have a flower and brought it, that's great. If you haven't, we have some here. To brighten our collective bouquet and to be part of something that grows stronger together, while remembering that love is what holds us together and accountable. Love sits at the center of our shared values and calls us to keep living those values in real life. This congregation is a place where we can be supported in the journey and where we can live out our commitments beyond Sunday morning and beyond these walls.
Our chalice lighting words this morning come from the religious education curriculum we've been following called Soul Matters. As the first hint of green begins to peek through the barren ground, as that little sprig grows into a healthy stem, as that stem grows into a stalk and forms a bud, as that bud slowly opens with each new day to form a yellow daffodil, let us be like that first hint of green, renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays, and ready to emerge with a new energy, ready to face the day. We light this chalice to bring a glimmer of that warmth into our space. And yesterday, every dandelion in town was blooming. So I brought my little dandelion vase, because we're going to mention dandelions toward the end of the service. The problem is, it got cold last night and all the dandelions closed up. So come forward, please, and add your flowers to the vase. The flower is the beautiful person that you are and the beautiful person that you want to be.
All right, so today our story is Blooming Together, the Garden of Us. Because as you can see, we've got these beautiful flowers here, right? I saw you all bring some up. All right. It was a sunny morning and Miss Green's classroom buzzed with excitement. Today, a new student was joining the class. A boy with big brown glasses and a shy smile peeked inside. "This is Milo," Miss Green said warmly. Milo nervously looked around. Some children giggled behind their hands. "Look at his huge glasses," whispered one of them. Milo's cheeks turned red. He stared down at his sneakers, wishing he could disappear. He thought of his old school where no one noticed his glasses. Miss Green clapped her hands gently. "Let's pause for a moment," she said, her eyes twinkling. "I have something special to show you." She held up a bouquet bursting with color. Red poppies, yellow sunflowers, purple lupines, white daisies, and pink tulips. "Look at these flowers," she said softly. The sunflowers stand tall and proud. The daisies dance like little stars, and the poppies sway like tiny flames. Each one is different, but together they make a beautiful bouquet. Right? It's a pretty beautiful bouquet we got there. Miss Green smiled at Milo. Milo is a special part of our classroom garden, and just like these flowers, when we all come together, we bloom. The room grew quiet. Then a girl named Sophie raised her hand. "Hi, Milo," Sophie said cheerfully. "I love your shirt. It's so cool." Milo looked up and, eyes wide with surprise, smiled shyly. One by one, the children spoke up. "I like your glasses," said Jamal, grinning. Do you want to play with us later? Asked Emma, bouncing in her seat. Milo's face lit up. His heart felt warm, like sunshine peeking through the clouds. Thank you, he whispered. He no longer wanted to hide. He wanted to play and learn with his new friends. That afternoon, the classroom blossomed like a garden. They chased butterflies at recess, painted flowers for the wall, and shared stories and laughter. Because in the end, it wasn't just about fitting in or standing out. It was about growing together and learning that differences make us stronger. Kindness makes us braver, and together we make something beautiful. We are blooming together in the garden of us.
Now I will introduce Pat Conrad to come forward and share with us the history of the flower communion and lead us through the ceremony. Pat?
The first time I attended a service at a Unitarian church was on Easter Sunday, my senior year of high school. I attended with my mother, who had started going to the Unitarian church a year or so earlier. They did a flower communion that service 66 years ago, but I had no idea what that ceremony was all about. But I liked the other things the minister was saying, and within a short time, my mother and I both joined the Unitarian Church. In about 1990, my husband and children and I spent a long weekend in Minneapolis. And on Easter Sunday, we attended the First Universalist Church. The minister, Terry Sweetser, incorporated a flower communion into his service, explaining its significance. After the service, I zipped into the minister's office and got a Xerox copy of his sermon, because I wanted to share the significance of this custom with this congregation. My notes on the script that I did for my original telling of this story are dated Easter 1991. I have updated the script several times over the intervening years as new information became available, particularly with the publication of this book in 1999. This book, by the way, was published by Skinner House Books, which was the publishing arm of the Unitarian Universalist denomination. Norbert Fabian Capek, A Spiritual Journey. This book is in our library. The flower communion goes back to a man named Dr. Norbert Capek. Capek was born in the southern part of a country that later became Czechoslovakia, over about 140 years ago. He was the son of a tailor and was brought up to become one himself. He loved singing, and as an adult he recalled that, "My father made suits for the school principal, who in turn gave me daily lessons in music and singing." Norbert Capek did learn how to play several instruments. Upon graduation from grammar school, 12-year-old Capek packed his few belongings into a small trunk and, with his mother accompanying him, headed for Vienna to live with his uncle, who was a successful tailor with several workers in his employ and a clothing store next to his workshop. The uncle took him on as a beginning apprentice. At home, Capek's family spoke Czech, but in Vienna, German was the official language. And with his older cousin's help, Norbert learned the German grammar well enough to be able to continue his academic studies. He also started to learn to speak the Slovak language. 2 years later, at age 14, a decision had to be made as to whether Capek would go on to gymnasium or into a trade school. The principal of his school recommended Capek for further study at the gymnasium, but his aunt opposed the idea. The boy, she said, should take up tailoring in earnest now by becoming a full-time apprentice to his uncle. And so it was decided. Sewing hems and buttonholes 10 hours a day was boring. To fill the void, Capek felt in his life, he began a serious investigation into the world of religion. He was Catholic. Each Sunday, he visited a different Catholic church, observing the style and persona of the officiating priests and weighing his feelings about the differences he noted among them. Then he attended a few Protestant churches, but they left him cold. There was none of the ceremony and color that he had come to love in the Mass. Then, by chance, he met a young man who invited him to a Baptist church, whose free-spirited sermons and spiritual presence moved Capek greatly, and he began to read some of the Baptist literature. It wasn't long before he decided to become a Baptist himself. He sought out his local Catholic priest and asked that his name be removed from the roll of members. But his request was dismissed, as he was only 17. 6 months later, he renewed his request and was grudgingly accommodated. Capek's uncle and aunt, upon hearing this news, were outraged. They felt that Capek had betrayed their trust and decided he was no longer welcome to live under their roof. Capek moved in with his new Baptist friend, and that friend began to train Norbert in the art of distributing Bibles. But this was the Protestant Bible, not the Catholic Bible that he carried. He was also beginning to preach twice a week in German and 3 times in Czech. Gradually, his messages attracted a wider following. On Sundays, in addition to church services, his Bible classes for children and young people were attracting a growing number of youngsters. His work was gaining the attention of the Baptist authorities, and he was offered a place at their seminary in Hamburg, Germany. His funds for the first year's tuition came from his little congregation. The years in Hamburg proved to be both formative and painful. It was beautiful because this was his first exposure to higher education in theology and philosophy. But it was painful because he was introduced to a guest lecturer from New York who emphasized social justice issues. Capek felt as if he'd gone through a radical reorientation in his thinking about religious matters. Before graduating from seminary, Capek took a pulpit of a small church, married, and had 2 children. His congregation was delighted with his ministry. His was a gospel of a joyful heart. His down-to-earth sermons, always full of illustration whose relevance to their lives was clear and compelling, made the congregation laugh out loud as often as it made them think. But he began to long to be back among his own Czech people, so he moved to the provincial capital of Moravia. To support his family, he began his first publishing venture. 2 more children were born to the Capeks, and his congregation grew to be 250 members. He started a newspaper, this one a quarterly. Then he published a book. Through review of these writings, the hierarchy of the Baptist Church became concerned about Capek's increasing departures from Orthodox Baptist faith. For Capek, the only acceptable kingdom of God was one in which the elimination of injustice and inequities among socio-economic classes would be achieved. A local professor who had been reading Capek's writings stated, "Capek, you're not really a Baptist, you're a Unitarian." And he invited Capek to join him at a meeting of the World Congress on Free Christianity and Religious Progress that would take place in Berlin that summer. With 3,000 people in attendance, this was Capek's first experience in meeting in the flesh devotees of some of the Eastern religions he'd only known about through books. He also met his first Unitarian. It was now 1911. and several factors were converging to make Capek's life uncomfortable. The Austrian censors were deleting articles from the journals he was publishing because he was writing about hunger, about cholera, and about the waning of democracy in his country. His articles calling for unity were flying in the face of the growing nationalism of the time. Clouds were also gathering on the international front. Vienna was suspending some of the autonomy previously granted to Bohemia. In the spring of 1914, a friendly police commissioner told Capek he was on the Austrian blacklist and advised him to leave the country before being taken to jail. Luckily, Capek received an invitation to serve as a minister of a small Slovak Baptist congregation on the east side of Manhattan, and he and his family came to the U.S. He lived in Manhattan for a year, then took a larger church in Orange, New Jersey. But it was clear to him that the meager salary of a Baptist missionary preacher would be wholly inadequate for the needs of his large family, so he began publishing another journal. He enrolled in a correspondence class and in 1915 was granted the degree of Doctor of Divinity on the strength of his former schooling in Hamburg. He also enrolled in City College in New York and pursued a doctoral degree. He even wrote articles for the New York Times during this period. Then his wife died. The New York Public Library's branch at 78th and York Avenue in the heart of the Slovak section of the city was one that Capek visited regularly to read papers from home. There he came to get to know a young woman named Maya, who had been raised in a convent in Western Bohemia, but had broken with the Catholic Church and now had a religious outlook very close to that of Capek himself. She'd emigrated to the U.S. about 10 years earlier and had graduated from Columbia University's School of Library Science. Within a few months, Capek asked Maya to marry him. He was 47 and she was 29. Because of his involvement with all of the immigrant organizations in New Jersey, Capek requested a leave of absence from his pastoral duties in Newark, New Jersey. He got involved in intelligence work for the United States because of his knowledge of so many Eastern European languages. And he was named chair of the Newark, New Jersey Red Cross chapter because of his involvement with relief activities. While living in Orange, New Jersey, the Capek family tried a number of churches, but found none to their taste. Then one Sunday, his children went along with a friend to the Unitarian Church. What the children had to tell their father after the service convinced Capek to go to that church himself and eventually to join it. The minister of that church, Dr. Sam Elliott, soon left the church to become president of the American Unitarian Association, the national denomination of the Unitarians. When Elliott got elected to that position, he asked his friend Norbert Capek to return to Czechoslovakia and try to start a Unitarian church there. The Capek family arrived back in Prague and found the flowers in bloom for Easter. They were a symbol to him of the start of a new life and the rebirth of Unitarianism in Czechoslovakia. The church they founded thrived. Within a few years, it was larger than any Unitarian church in the United States, having 5,000 members and more than 1,000 in church each Sunday. At Easter, during the first year, Norbert wanted to do something special to celebrate the spirit of life that will not die. He remembered the flowers that welcomed him back and designed a simple flower communion. He asked each person to bring a flower to church as a symbol of the beautiful individual they would like to be. Each placed the flower in a central arrangement, to symbolize the beauty of the congregation. And then every person was asked to leave with a flower different from the one they brought, to show their willingness to accept the potential beauty in others. The service was a big success and was used each year in most of our Eastern European churches. It did not come to this country, though, until the rest of Norbert Capek's story unfolded. You see, at the beginning of the Second World War, Czechoslovakia was taken over by the Nazis. Dr. Capek would not be silent. In 1940, he was brutally interrogated by the secret police. About this, all he said was, "All people of worth are either jailed or examined by the Gestapo. I'd be ashamed of myself if I weren't." On March 23, 1941, Capek delivered a sermon in which he called Hitler a demonic liar. 5 days later, the 71-year-old Unitarian minister was arrested and charged with treason. This caused the members of his church to double their efforts against the Nazis, working underground in resistance. Their impact was great enough to warrant the Nazis to offer Dr. Capek a pardon if he would recant his statements and bring his people under his control. He phrased his response like this: "I shall never bow down before them. They should ask me for a pardon." From that time on, his fate was sealed. Capek was moved from one concentration camp to another until his death as a part of a cruel medical experiment at Dachau in 1942. Perhaps that doesn't sound like a very hopeful spring story, and yet there is a bit more. People who were with Norbert Capek in the camps and who survived have testified to his ministry there. They saw him as an angel of hope amidst human despair. He organized religious services on all holidays and taught his fellow prisoners hymns of praise, some of which he had probably written himself because he was doing that, which the prisoners sang at the tops of their voices even when their captors tried to silence them. But perhaps the most memorable legend about Dr. Capek comes from the celebration of Easter and Passover he organized at Dachau in 1942. Walking in the prison yard, Capek saw a dandelion and a few blades of grass struggling to grow. He was reminded of the beautiful flowers that graced his church each year at the flower communion. He picked the dandelion along with some grass and hid them in his clothes. That day he told his friends that there'd be a celebration of hope late that evening, and everyone should try to bring a flower, or if they could not find that, a blade of grass. Even a twig with a hint of buds would do. Somehow in that barren place of death, most were able to find something, and others found extra. That night, in the light of a single candle, each person placed an offering in a central arrangement. As they looked upon it, seeing in it their beauty as people, they were transformed into a congregation of hope, knowing that though they might die, life beautiful would live on through their seeds of courage. After Dr. Capek had blessed the flowers, each person took one flower or twig or blade of grass away, knowing life still had gifts to give. Word of this event has since spread throughout the Unitarian Universalist world. And so today, we join others who, even in the darkness of despair, find hope enough to praise life with a flower, a gift of the self to be shared with others. I am now going to say a prayer the consecration of the flowers that Dr. Capek himself wrote, and that's in the back of our hymnal, number 724, called Consecration of the Flowers. Infinite Spirit of Life, we ask thy blessing on these thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. I now invite all of you to enjoy the beauty of our bouquet of flowers as a representation of the beauty of all of us together as a congregation, and come forward to pick out a flower to take home with you, with that flower representing your agreement to respect the beauty of others in the congregation. These flowers are, as Dr. Norbert Capek would have said, the messengers of our love and fellowship. Come on up and grab a flower. Kim just noticed that our dandelions are opening up. They were all open yesterday, and overnight with the cold weather and the rain, they all closed up, but they're reopening.
We extinguish the chalice this morning with these closing words from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. If we make our goal to live a life of compassion and unconditional love, then the world will indeed become a garden where all kinds of flowers can bloom and grow.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.